All right, so moving on to the next segment. I'll be sharing my favorite 3 WWE pay-per-view cards of the 21st century. So we're talking about from 2000 all the way to the calendar year of this year, 2026. A lot of history, a lot of cards, but in my opinion, these are my top 3 WWE pay-per-view cards of the 21st century. So number 1 is going to be WrestleMania 17. Now, I do believe that WrestleMania 17 is the greatest WrestleMania card of all time, and honestly might be the best wrestling card in wrestling history. No matter what promotion you loved over the years of WWE, WCW, ECW, AEW, I think WrestleMania 17 is the greatest wrestling card of all time. And the card back in 2001 had a lot of career-defining moments and had some of the greatest matches in wrestling history a part of the card. Like, the card was very strong, and during 2001, this WrestleMania 17 card actually had a mix of everything for Attitude fans during the wrestling era at that time. Like, there was a lot of no disqualifications matches, hardcore matches, one of the greatest main events of all time between Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Like, you had the fun hardcore triple threat match between Kane, The Big Show, and Raven. You also had, for diehard pure wrestling fans, wrestling technicians, you had Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit. You also had Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon in a street fight. You had the classic TLC match part 2 between the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudley Boys for the World Tag Team titles. You had The Undertaker defending his WrestleMania streak against Triple H. And in the main event, you had that epic WWF Championship match between Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. No disqualifications match for the title. And the icing on the cake to a great, outstanding match was one of the greatest heel turns of all time. Nobody's seen it coming. With Stone Cold Steve Austin selling his soul to the devil and Vince McMahon to win the WWE Championship, to defeat his arch rival in The Rock, turning heel and aligning himself with his biggest rival in wrestling history. Now, the heel turn would have been more memorable, in my opinion, if it was executed correctly. But I think WrestleMania 17 is one of the greatest wrestling pay-per-view events of all time, and definitely the greatest wrestling event of all time in the 21st century, in my opinion. Next pay-per-view, number 2 on my list, is going to be SummerSlam 2002. Now, in my opinion, SummerSlam 2002, that pay-per-view card, is the greatest SummerSlam pay-per-view event of all time in WWE history. I mean, the card was actually stacked from top to bottom in the summer of 2002 for the SummerSlam card. You had Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio that nearly stole the damn show. One of the best opening pay-per-view matches in wrestling history. Like, for 9-10 minutes, these two respective wrestlers hit it out of the park. You also had Chris Jericho versus the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Two wrestlers that were coming up at the time on the Blue Brand of SmackDown. Edge versus Eddie Guerrero. That was a fun match. You also had Rob Van Dam versus Chris Benoit for the Intercontinental Championship. You also had Shawn Michaels returning back to the ring for the first time in 4 years after coming back from a broken back injury. A lot of people thought Shawn Michaels would never return to the ring. He returned the summer of 2002 to face his former D-Generation ex-partner in Triple H, having an unsanctioned match. And Shawn Michaels, Triple H stole the damn show, had a 5 out of 5 star match. But the biggest takeaway from that is Shawn Michaels handpicked his opponent, who he trusted the most, to come back to the ring with after his broken back injury. Him and Triple H hit it out of the park. And the main event was the icing on the cake with Brock Lesnar defeating The Rock for the WWE title. That was the perfect passing of the torch moment, because Brock Lesnar, ever since debuting in early 2002, was viewed as the next big thing, won the King of the Ring tournament, and defeated The Rock to win the WWE Championship as The Rock packed his bags and went Hollywood, while Brock Lesnar became one of the greatest of all time, winning the WWE title back in 2002. And last but not least, number 3 on my list, this was hard, very debatable with WrestleMania 30, Money in the Bank 2011, but I'm going to go with WrestleMania 20. Now, I think WrestleMania 20 is one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time in the 21st century. I mean, you had WrestleMania return back to Madison Square Garden. I mean, the card was actually stacked from top to bottom back in 2004. Like, you had John Cena versus The Big Show for the United States Championship. John Cena getting a massive pop for winning his first championship on the main roster and defeating The Big Show, having a career-defining moment in Madison Square Garden. You also had Evolution's Ric Flair, Batista, and Randy Orton taking on The Rock and Mick Foley. The Rock and Sock Connection reuniting for one night only, with Evolution defeating The Rock and Mick Foley in a great 3-on-2 handicap match. The stinker of the card was Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar, because I felt like this was the perfect time for them to hit it out of the park. Both were in the prime of their careers. But after this match, both were clearly leaving the company as they did, and the news broke all over the internet. Like, the storyline heading up to the match was actually pretty cool, but both wrestlers didn't want to be there. And Madison Square Garden, that crowd that night, didn't want the wrestlers to be in the ring. They stunk up the joint, and Stone Cold Steve Austin did everything he could as a special guest referee to make sure the match was actually decent, but it wasn't. Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship was a fun, incredible match. Good technical wrestling match with Eddie Guerrero unlacing his boot, getting the roll-up pin on Kurt Angle to retain the WWE Championship. You also had The Undertaker return back to action to face his brother, kayfabe brother, Kane, to successfully defend his undefeated WrestleMania streak. And then, in my opinion, one of the greatest triple threat matches of all time and one of the greatest WrestleMania main events of all time. Chris Benoit versus Shawn Michaels versus Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. Look, obviously this match would be talked about more in wrestling history if it wasn't for Chris Benoit's sake. But I think this was an incredible triple threat match with Chris Benoit getting on top of the mountain and winning the World Heavyweight Championship. And then, of course, one of the biggest wrestling moments of wrestling history with Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero both being world champions, sharing a moment with each other, celebrating in the ring. Also taken away from wrestling history because of Chris Benoit's actions in 2007. So those are my overall top 3 wrestling PLEs or pay-per-views in the 21st century in WWE history.